before turning his passion for aviation into an impressive civilian career. Over the past several years, he's led unmanned aircraft operations around the globe, from supporting the U.S. and NATO forces overseas to managing commercial drone programs and training new pilots. Today, he's the Suez Program Manager and subject matter expert for U.S. Air Forces in Europe and Africa. He's here to share how he navigated that transition and what he learned along the way. So to start, Spencer, do you just want to let us know kind of what led you to the Navy in the first place and then how that transition out was after?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I was 17. I kind of knew I wanted to join the military for a long time. My grandpa served. He was on the in the Battle of Yorktown, or in the Battle of Midway and Coral Sea on the Yorktown when it sank. And as a kid, I would hear some stories from that, and it kind of always uh, just thought it was honorable and just a really cool thing to have. So he passed away when I was 10, and it's kind of always in the back of my mind to join the military. I think serving your country is like one of the most honorable things you can do and selfless acts. So, yeah, I kind of always knew that's what I wanted to do. And 17, I got my parents to sign for me and did the delayed entry program. And yeah, did that till for 6 years and till I got out.
Awesome. What was that transition like? What do you think one of some of the challenges are? So all the people in this chat right now are transitioning service members. So I'm sure they could all use a little advice on maybe what you struggled with and what they might also be struggling with.
Yeah, it was a couple of things. Like it was interesting when I joined. I was the young guy in the squadron. Had hair back in the day. And I got out, lost all my hair, and I was the old guy in college. So I went straight into to at Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, studied criminology there. So that was kind of interesting, just kind of fitting in with the younger crowd and
Mhm.
um, dealing with the college experience. And another thing, like I was pretty good with my money until the last year. I kind of went crazy and bought a bunch of stuff, and so I had a little debt when I got out. So that was a challenge, just having to work, full times, pay off debt, and be a student and kind of go through that grind. Um, other than that, yeah, it was just like kind of took me a while to find kind of my niche. I never really picked drones. They kind of picked me. They keep picking on me, and so it ended up working out that way. But I didn't have like a real plan. I knew I kind of liked aviation. I liked law enforcement. So I kind of got out trying to kind of figure things out. I didn't have a real strong plan when I got out.
Okay, you say drones picked you. How did that come about once you got out and out of college?
Yeah, so my last semester, like I said, I was a broke college kid, and I I was in the process of getting on with the U.S. Marshals and the drawing a blank right now, the Border Patrol. And so I was in the final stages of that, and I did went to my last interview, and on the way there, I got a call from Academy, which is formerly known as Blackwater. People have heard about that, and they offered me, a pretty good income and made it sound super cool, a lot cooler than it ended up being, to be honest. Um, but so I kind of took that and ran with it, and then just since then, I just kind of stayed in that profession for it's been almost a decade now.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. What are some opportunities that are out there right now I had a couple people like my comment that said they're interested in getting into drones. What's the world look like right now? I know it's ever growing, so it's going to
Yeah.
only get bigger in the next few years.
Yeah, this is the time. It's a really good time to get into unmanned systems because or uncrewed systems because um Kylie, I know you're probably familiar, but for those that aren't, the Secretary of Defense came out with the Unleashing American Drone Dominance Act, or memo, and basically what that entails is we're getting away from um, the Chinese kind of own a lot of the UAS, commercial off-the-shelf UAS, and this is going to kind of tailor that. Oh, sorry, Secretary of War, yeah, uh, tailor that to American made parts and American made drones. And really everything in the Ukraine and Russia that's going on is, really changing how war is being done. And we're kind of playing cat and mouse with the technology that's going on. And counter UAS is huge. UAS is huge. And as we from that memo that came out, every unit of the military is going to have their own UAS programs, and it's just going to go crazy from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Um, what trends do you see shaping the industry over the next couple years? Do you think there's any new trends in the drone world that are going to be coming up?
Yeah, there's just so much technology right now. I counter UAS is kind of being more of a heavy trend. If you look at the job market right now, it's heavily saturated with counter UAS, which is like we do counter UAS for the position I'm in now. Basically detecting and defeating UAS threats. So we're like I said, we're still as technology evolves in Ukraine and Russia, we're learning a lot from that, and it's just really trending towards how do we defend these every time we come out with something, they seem to have a new thing that defeats it. So it's just yeah, anything counter UAS related is kind of the trend right now.
Yeah. Do you think we're where we need to be at with the counter US systems that the US
No,
currently has?
no. As you're aware, yeah, no. We have a lot of work to do. We've had a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy that's kind of held us back. And that's one thing that that memo that I was speaking of kind of points at, and it's going to make things a lot easier. So before we had an exemption to policy request that we had to do for every drone that we were interested, and we had to. It took about 3 to 4 months to get that complete. And just by the time you got all the paperwork done, all the procurement stuff done through the DoD, we would be probably a year behind already. So that's going to streamline the process and help a lot. And then all the you can look at the job market right now that's just booming. There's just so much out there, so it's going to be developing very quickly.
Yeah, I think so too. So we have a question in the chat, which I was going to go into a little bit further. So Claire said, would someone who has been through counter UAS classes in the Army be already certified for your company? What does your company do? And do you teach counter UAS to the military? First, can you kind of explain for the rest of the class kind of what counter UAS is? So you explained SUAS on that side, but could you just explain in counter UAS some more and then answer Claire's question?
Yeah. So counter UAS, yeah, basically detecting and defeating UAS threats. It's usually done with a number of different systems, but ground-based systems like radar, acoustic sensors, um, electronic warfare, or EW sensors, and also like EO/IR, like camera sensors that detect it, visually. Um, and there's a number of ways that we can detect the UAS, but it's that's the main thing is detection, and then the defeat side is you have kinetic options where we can shoot them down, like physically shoot them down with ammunition. We can defeat them with basically jamming their signals. There's a number of way that we can kind of go about it, but that's kind of the counter UAS in a nutshell. And then to answer Claire's question, that having counter UAS experience is huge for my company. I didn't actually have any real counter UAS experience when I came in. So just having any experience whatsoever, even in UAS, even if you don't have the counter side, if you have the UAS side, you kind of know how to defeat it because you know how you think like a UAS operator, so you kind of know how to defeat the operator. Um, and then as far as the certifications, we have different certifications that are tailored to the actual systems that we use, but we can teach that. You don't have to have that before, it's nice to have, but you don't have to have that before you join. And then my company is OWT Global. We're a contracting company. We do a lot of different things. We basically solve and provide solutions to the U.S. military and um, just different departments within Homeland Security and things of that nature. And I don't actually teach counter UAS. I My role here is strictly UAS. So we do act as we call it red adversarial, UAS, where we're flying as the bad actors. So we'll fly against our students here that are military students, and we'll fly the UAS, the drones, so that they can detect us and perform their tactics and techniques and procedures. But I don't actually teach that. We have other people at our company that do teach that curriculum though.
Mhm. Just so everyone knows, Spencer can explain it a little more. This company is worldwide, stateside wide. They're everywhere. There's people everywhere, so there's a lot of opportunities, whether they're remote or really in any state, right, Spencer? Really anywhere you want to be.
Yeah, pretty much. We're forward deployed a lot of places. Here in Germany, it's pretty much like a normal job. I get like 40 hours and can get overtime and stuff like that. We have probably a team of like 7 people here at Ramstein. We have people in the UK, people all in Paycom, really all over, and we're headquartered in Tampa, Florida. That's where we're located. But yeah, we're all over. We do everything from ATAC, UAS, counter UAS. The counter UAS is kind of our bread and butter. But yeah, there's a number of things on our website that I see every day that I'm like, oh, I didn't realize we even did that. So yeah, we're constantly growing.
Yeah, there's always a lot open. It looks like Steven asked, does counter UAS integrate into Avion radar systems? I worked with aviation safety, and we often would detect UAS on our Avion radar, resulting in us sharing information between multiple government agencies.
That one, I'm not sure. I wouldn't. Uh, I'm not uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure
equipped to
either.
answer that. Yeah, I'm not. I'd have to look at that system.
Yeah. Um, who would you tell that someone's separating, and looking into going into this career? What advice would you give them going in?
Going in, I'd say if you're currently in the military, take every opportunity you can to get involved with UAS or counter UAS, especially as we are standing up our UAS units within the military from that memo. Um, get your Part 107 license, which is your remote pilot license for the FAA or certification. It's pretty easy to obtain. It's a lot of like just reading basic like aviation charts, and then it's learning the safety knowledge and kind of the knowledge portion. And then you just go and get a proctor test at a testing facility, and then that's one check, checking the block to get. Um, Other than that, also like ATAC, everything UAS right now is also the DoD is really big in integrating with ATAC. So if you can get your hands on that, that would be a big selling point for when you go to look for a job in the future. Um, Also just for like I actually wanted to be a man pilot for a long time, and I did private pilot and instrument and all that. So if you have any interest in aviation in general, that also applies to UAS, having that aviation knowledge. So go out and do a discovery flight, or go out and get your private pilot license. You can do that while you're in as well.
Awesome. It looks like we have a few questions, so I'll let them all go up there. First, we have Shaquan. What's up?
Good morning, Spencer. How you doing, brother?
Hey, doing well, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I first want to thank you for coming out to speak with all of the veterans that are here. We truly and deeply appreciate your time. So my question is more so on the lines of when you started about finding your niche. I want to like because your space is such a unique space. I want to hear more about like how you found drones and like your passions and how did it line up in a way. I want to hear more about that background story for like everybody in the group chat because I think everybody in the group chat they don't know they may think that they know what they want to do but actually getting out there and going through those experiences may lead them in another direction. I would love to hear more about how you found your drone path.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, like I said earlier, like I wasn't really looking for drones. I just kind of saw a LinkedIn post and applied to it and didn't think I'd get it since I didn't really have that experience. But like, so one big thing is if there's something that interests you, don't sell yourself short because if I wouldn't apply, I would have literally probably never even I'd be doing something completely different right now. So if you see something that piques your interest, give it a shot. And as far as from there, like aviation's always been, I was in the Navy, I was on P3 Orions, so I always liked aviation, uh, thought it was interesting, so that kind of led me into the UAS world. And from there, just kind of doing the flying Scan Eagle drones, and I was deployed in Afghanistan and Tower 22 in the Jordan Syrian border. And what was cool for me is I kind of got an experience that I didn't like a fulfillment that I didn't get in the military. I kind of got that more as when I contracted because I was I was my deployments in the Navy were pretty cush. They were, sitting in a hotel somewhere, and I don't know, just being on the ground, being kind of forward deployed and working with some pretty cool people was kind of piqued my interest and kept pushing me down this role. So yeah, just some, it's okay. Like I'm still figuring out even within UAS like what I'm interested in. Do I want to do testing? Do I want to do uh, more of the management role? Um, just it's kind of like just keep going until you find what you like, and when you find what you like, just like pursue it with all your might.
Thank you so much to answer my question.
Awesome, you going.
All right, Ryan, what's up?
Hey Spencer, again, thank you for being here. And actually, you're starting to kind of talk my language. I'm getting ready to transfer out of the Navy as well. I'm a CTT, so I kind of have the experience with the counter UAS stuff, being an electronic warfare guy and stuff like that. And I'm actually currently at the EOD schoolhouse teaching ISR for drones and stuff like that. And actually, I'm certified as a AVO to fly them in the Navy. But my question kind of comes down to kind of like in your role, like how do you approach translating the complex technical capabilities into something that the decision makers can understand or the end users, um, and that they could like understand it and be able to act on?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a big part of my role is my leadership is mainly security forces personnel. So they're base defenders. They do a lot of law enforcement and kind of shooting guns and stuff like that. So they don't always speak the UAS language. Um, so yeah, I do a lot of research and just what I like to do is do, I'll do an analysis on something. It might be super technical, but then I'll do my best to translate it, to the best of my ability of how this will affect the mission, what this brings to the warfighter, and why our requirements, like first of all, make the requirements too. That's a big thing. Is you shouldn't just with all the technical stuff, you shouldn't just go in with specs. You should have a defined requirement for each thing, and then you can go to the leadership that might not speak that technical jargon and say, this encryption, this level, 256 encryption or whatever, it's needed because if we don't have it, we can be vulnerable to having our UAS be controlled or defeated or whatever. So yeah, just kind of establishing those requirements and then using the technical side to fulfill those requirements. I also worked with at Boeing previously, or a subsidiary called Aurora Flight Sciences, and that was all engineers pretty much. I was pretty much the only prior military dude, and yeah, that was a little bit of a struggle because sometimes people don't really appreciate the end user experience. So if you're ever, having that technical background that you do, if you're ever in a role where you're having to provide that, um, it's it's really important to keep the end user in mind. That's on the ground because they have a tendency to kind of over engineer, and yeah, so that's how I'd go about it though.
All right, Matthew.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. I just have a quick question. I know you have a lot of background in aviation already, just with you said Boeing and your pilot's license and everything. I have my AMP license. I work on F-22, so fifth gen. I was wondering, do you have any insight to going to be maintenance on drones, or do you have any connections that you would recommend me reaching out to for the maintenance side of things?
Yeah, so there's a lot of that in like the group. So drones have different groups attached to them based on weight and certain characteristics. When you get into the more advanced, like bigger, more expensive drones, they're like usually group 2, group 3 and above. They go up to group 5, I believe. And those often have maintainers that are like an established maintenance role. And I would argue it's almost harder to, like, maintenance doesn't come naturally for me. So if you have that maintenance background, that can actually get you in the door for some positions for if you had interest in flying drones as well. Because especially if you're, on a fob somewhere, there's no one to really fix your stuff. And a lot of the FSR roles entail maintenance as well. So, so yeah, that's a big thing and would be super helpful. Um, Yeah. Did I answer your full question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that works. That
Linked out a
works.
little bit. All right.
Do you have connections on like LinkedIn or anything for maintenance roles? If I was to like, I'll link out, I'll follow you and everything. So
Yeah. Yeah. I could help you out. I know, Shield AI, is a big one, that often posts for maintenance roles. I don't have a super like tight connection with them, but I do know some people there. Um, that's just one that came to my head. But yeah, add me on LinkedIn, and I'm sure I could find some things. But
awesome.
yeah, there's a ton out there for maintenance stuff.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. Thank you, Spencer. All right, Michael.
Hey Spencer, how you doing?
Hey, doing well, Michael.
So let me take this background off real quick, and I'll show you what I got.
All right.
Got this Wingman Attack 2 joystick right here that I play with on flight gear.
Oh, nice.
So got to get some experience with that one. But so I'm going to ask you this question about that. I'm going to put my thing back on here real quick.
Okay. Cool.
There we go. So for how do you control the drones?
So we control them in a number of ways. Like what we do, there's pretty much two different things that we deal with here in my role in Ramstein here, Germany. And group one, which is the smaller drones, typically is a little RC controller.
Mhm.
We have a number of systems that usually come with a dedicated RC controller. There's certain like first person drones with the goggles and stuff that you see that can be flown sometimes with third party controllers. But it's some type of RC controller going through through a handheld device. The other way is for typically for like group two and above and some
Point and
group ones
click.
as well. Yeah, button clicks through a GCS, the ground control station. So a laptop going with software that goes through a antenna, basically a radio, and then an antenna, and it pushes out a C2 link to the aircraft.
So a little bit of experience with that, not so much on the ground. I was more a staff guy for it. But one of my last commands I was at was the staff for all the patrol and reconnaissance for the Navy,
Nice.
specifically like the P-8 aircraft was like the main. I was there when the big bulk of switching from the P-3 uh, airplane with the props to the P-8 jet engine. And then on my way out of there was the big push for I'll just say Poseidon. Um, and getting to see how all of that went. And what I'm curious of is because of kind of the role that I played, I'm curious how that translates over. So from I mean, we had these guys everywhere where those guys are, right?
Mhm.
Some that were, going around with man packs, others going around with trailers, right? Depending on the different configuration. And I'm trying to be careful because what I'm saying, and I'm
Right, right.
sure you understand. Um, but my role, what I did with the staff wasn't just around like the policy setting, which that was part of it. Because as you know, like it's kind of like the Wild West when it comes to this kind of technology, especially as we are trying to take more dominance away from China. Um, but my role that I served with that community was with the information technology section, but on the connection and connectivity. For instance, you could just say like one of the minor parts was um, actually setting up and sending out SIM cards to go into the radios, and which would be on the side of the controller and on the side of the aircraft.
Mhm.
And then like controlling and get basically being Verizon for that. That's pretty much what I called it. Like being Verizon for the aircraft and for the controller. Um, how big is that space the as this space is growing?
Yeah. So networking is huge. One more thing to add too, you made me think about it is addition to like the Part 107 and all that I recommended. Any like cyber certs you can get, or Security Plus, anything like that, that's huge, especially with the counter UAS stuff, because it's all networking. So like we might find a radar that we like and we want to add it to our system that we use, and then we get it and we're like, okay, well, how do we integrate it? How do we network it? So the counter UAS space is probably like the biggest space for that. But then, as I talked about, I mentioned ATAC. Um, that's another thing that networking would be huge with, is like, how do we get uh, ATAC, Android Tactical Assault Kit, how do we get that to talk to this drone or this piece of equipment that we're looking at? And then how do we broadcast that to our units? And there's just a lot of things you can do with it. But yeah, that'd be super helpful, especially in the counter UAS space.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Michael. All right, it looks like we have 2 more questions and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Let's go, Robert.
Hey, Spencer, I just want to say, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. My question is involving, I guess, with the company. I would like to learn a little bit more with OWT Global, and I guess like the day-to-day life of like working there, and maybe also with the different positions that they have at the company. I know that they're involved with, unmanned aerial systems, and I know they have like cyber and everything like that. I was wondering if you might be able to touch with like the intelligence side of it, because I'm in the Coast Guard. I was an intelligence specialist and um, currently working on my degree in intelligence at AMU. And so I was just wondering like what if I were to apply at some place like this, like how could I like stand out?
Yeah. So anything that you did in the military is unique to yourself. So yeah, you bring a different perspective. So like, having that intelligence background and that ISR kind of knowledge of what does the full finished product actually look like, that's a big that'd be super helpful as well. What my company actually does, we major in a few things. It's C5 ISR, air-based defense, TAC and TAC integration, TSO, and then UXS, or unmanned systems, or uncrewed systems, I should say. I just got our little mission statement. I'll just read it real quick. Our mission is harnessing our elite field-tested experience. OWT Global helps our customers solve their hardest operational defense and security challenges by delivering proven and innovative solutions while prioritizing our war fighters, our people, and our trusted partnerships. So those are like the 5 things that we mainly do. And I'm going to share a link with you guys in a second. But as far as current roles, we have a few that are open. I know we have a few ATAC roles that are going on right now. We have a solutions engineer for radar. That's a full-time position. These are all full-time positions. We have an MQ9 instructor pilot. That's an OCONUS position. An ATAC subject matter expert, and then an unmanned traffic management role, and then another ATAC SME role. And then we just wrapped up hiring for a SUAS sustainment operator role. But yeah, if do you have do you have like a TS or anything like that?
I do have a TS SEI that's still active.
Yeah, so that's a huge one too, because a lot of people don't have that. So that's, coming into a company with that you don't have to do the full background check and all that stuff. We can just kind of pick you up, and that can be pretty lucrative as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Robert. All right, our
Thank you.
last question is going to be Eric.
Hey, what's going on, Spencer? How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing well, Eric. How are you?
Hey, good, man. I'm hanging in there. First, I wanted to ask, you mentioned P3s. Do you happen to know a guy named Corey Bauk?
It doesn't ring a bell. I was out in Hawaii, so I'm not sure if he was that way or not. I was
Oh,
2010
got
to
it. Okay.
2016.
He's
Yeah.
kind of a mentor friend of mine, but he was a P3 dude around the same time frame as you would have been. Now he works for like Johnsonville and he's like a thought leader or whatever. Anyway, thought you might have that connection, but I retired in July. I'm coming out of RPAs the last 17 years or so. So MQ1s, MQ9s, RQ170. I didn't operate RQ4s, but familiar with those as well. So my most recent role was coming out of a technical training environment. So I'm trying to kind of like fuse those two things, right? So like the program management and the technical training space with the RPA operations knowledge. So I kind of wanted to get your perspective on that, like where might I find the most bang for my buck, in terms of roles that would overlap in those two realms. And then like, from your personal experience, especially within your own organization, are you guys looking for folks that can fill roles like that?
Yeah. So like I think that might even translate to like our MQ9 role. It's a bigger platform that not a lot of people, it's a lot different than like flying group ones and group twos. So yeah, things like that. I've seen a lot of MQ9 stuff on LinkedIn. So maybe, check that out. I know it's not necessarily apples to apples maybe, but yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And then you said, I think you mentioned project management. That's something that
Mhm.
you're interested in. So I would, if you don't have it already, I would recommend trying to get your Google project management certification, and then that'll
Okay.
allow you to get your PMP from PMI Institute.
Okay,
Um,
I have my PMP and my
oh,
CSA.
that's awesome. That's huge. I don't even have that yet, so I'm working on it right now.
Yeah, and I've got
Yeah,
a
if you have,
master's in project management too, man. So if you need a project
oh,
manager, let me know.
yeah, okay, for sure. Yeah. We have a lot of things pop up. We create a lot of like new positions. Some of them fall off because contracting is kind of feast or famine, and sometimes contracts change, or we won't be a sub anymore. Someone else will be a sub or a prime. So as things come up, if I hear anything, I'll definitely keep you in mind. Keep me updated on LinkedIn as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's with all this growth that's happening from the memo that I was talking about.
Hmm.
Um, like look into companies like Red Cat, um, or Red Cat Holdings, AeroVironment, um, Dark Hive, and Skydio are just big ones, and Anduril as well. Anduril, I think, hiring some PM positions.
Okay.
There's just a ton out there for PM, and with that UAS, UAV background, that would be, I think, and with your masters in PMP, you'd be pretty much, one of the top applicants, I would imagine. So
That's what I hoped, but I've been
yeah,
shot down twice by Anduril now. So I'm like, man, I need to find some contacts in there. So I'm leveraging some old buddies to try and get some contacts within that space. But
yeah.
yeah. So
Hey,
okay,
Eric,
cool.
I've heard that you have to apply at least 3 times to Andrel for them to accept you. They want to make sure that you're willing to go the extra mile. That's just a rumor that I've heard, could be completely false, but
Okay.
maybe just try one more time.
Yeah, I'll keep looking. But yeah, that's that was one of the places that they've got Christian Bros on their board, and that was kind of exciting. Um, so yeah, I'd love to get in with them. Seemed like a really cool company. And then I don't know
Yeah,
if you heard about Auterion trying to set up like across all types of RPAs um like the same type of software baseline across like all different UAS and RPAs. So I was kind of looking at them today too. Um,
Yeah, no, that's interesting. There's a ton out there. I got a buddy that's at Anduril. His name's Austin Denhart. I was served with him in the Navy. He's I think he's a robotics PM or something like that. Um, but yeah, you could connect with me and I could, set you up with him as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll send you the connection request, and then if you're open to it, man, I'd love to chat one on one sometime
Yeah,
if you're open to it.
for sure. Yeah, be happy
Cool.
to.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Have a great week, and appreciate you coming in to talk with us.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Everyone put a react in the chat if you loved having Spencer on. Spencer, thank you so much. With SUA's role growing so much, I think it was great to have you on. I think it's a field that's not going to stop growing. So thank you so much for coming and talking to everybody today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's great to see you again. Yeah, if
Yeah,
anyone
great to
has
see
any
you.
follow-up stuff, just shoot me a message on LinkedIn. It might take me a little bit to get back to you, but